Thank you everybody for joining us. We have a very special guest, one of my best friends, David Leibovitch. He's French. We grew up together, went to the same high school, went to college together, studied physics together, did a lot of nerdy things together, and a lot of you, probably every one of you who's listening or watching doesn't know who he is, but he's on the show because he has this skill, we like to call it a superpower sometimes, that he has perfect pitch, right? So I wanted to ask him a bunch of questions about it. I've always found it fascinating. He's able to tell what note is what. That's what perfect pitch is. But we'll talk more about that later. David, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, Nelson.
This is weird. I usually interview people that are like, I don't know that well, and then here you are.
I'm honored. This is great.
Thanks for coming on here. I mean, part of the show that I'm doing, I like having people that are famous for what they do, but also kind of like regular, you're not regular, but like people who do everyday work and aren't known for their skill, but have these skills anyways. So I guess to start off, because I know you, but nobody out there knows you, tell me like a little bit of your background, like where you're from, what you studied, when this skill came around.
Sure. As you know, I grew up in France, studied music, studied the violin since I was 4 years old, and I studied music theory also from a very young age.
Uh-huh.
A lot of solfège, we call solfège in France.
What is that?
It's like music theory and
Okay.
some singing, and a big part of that is we do musical dictations.
Okay.
And so the instructor plays a piece of music, and then you have to be able to write it down.
Just by ear.
Recognize what the notes are. Right. Yeah. Right. What the notes are, and then it can be one voice, can be multiple voices, can
Wow.
be chords, and so that's something I trained for.
Yeah.
And that was obviously a big part of what contributed to me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect pitch. But for your listeners, I don't know if your listeners know what perfect pitch is.
Yeah. So please explain. I mean, I said it in the quick version, but there's probably a little more to it. So go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm no expert in it. Basically, I mean, from what I understand, it's a little bit like being able to recognize colors.
Yeah.
So.
But music.
Exactly. So from a very young age, you're taught that certain frequency of light is red.
Yeah.
Another frequency of light is blue.
Exactly.
And so it's the same thing. You're just kind of get used to putting a label on certain frequencies of sound.
Right. So you hear, what someone on the piano might press as a middle C, and you recognize from the sound, even without looking at the person
so
playing.
It
the
jumps
note.
out at me. I don't have to think about it. I actually hear the name of a note in French, which is so it's like do re mi fa sol la si do. I don't hear A B C D F G, but I hear.
So you hear a voice in your head that says, "Hey David, psst, the answer is."
It's basically a voice, yeah.
That's crazy.
I mean, I can't put it doesn't sound like a person, but it sounds like almost like a voice. Somebody saying the name.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I guess we can, because just to test you, not that I don't believe you, but just so people can believe this and we can get started and go deeper into this, I have this little melodica. It's like a harmonica keyboard.
To make sure we're not faking this.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just going to play a couple notes, single notes, and you just tell me what they are, yeah?
I'm sure.
You don't have to train. You don't have to warm up for this, do you? Ever?
No. So there's like perfect pitch where you don't have to, calibrate your hearing, and then there's like relative pitch.
Oh yeah.
And that's a little bit, I think, easier to train for, and for that, people have to have recently heard a note that they know the name of,
like a reference point. Yeah.
A reference point, so that and then within the next couple hours they can tell you what note's being played.
Yeah, based off of that. So I would play like a C. I'd say this is a C. They would hear the C, and then from that point they can say, oh, like this is a little higher. That's probably an E, and so on. Interesting.
And I think for perfect pitch, I think for relative pitch, anybody can train for it. And I think for perfect pitch, or what's also called absolute pitch, there may be some genetic predispositions
You
that
think so?
make
Okay.
it, well, from what I read online, I don't really know,
Yeah.
but there may be some genetic predispositions that make it easier for you
Yeah.
to do this.
Interesting. All right, we'll go into that, but here we go.
Uh, it's a G.
It is the G, in fact. All right.
That's an A flat.
Yeah. All
Or
right.
G sharp. It's a D,
Yeah.
F.
All right,
But
can
I
I-
hear like, so what I hear is, I hear like, fa, like I hear,
With the
still-
voice, yeah.
yeah.
So, okay, so the voice in your head isn't just saying the word, but it's actually saying it at that pitch?
Yeah, it's like sing.
Is it a man or a woman? Is it you? Who is it?
I don't know who it is,
Oh, okay.
but
That's funny.
I
All right.
mean, if it's a really high pitched note, it's probably some kind of woman.
And if it's low, it's a dude.
I would think so.
Yeah. All right, can I play two notes at the same time?
Sure.
All right.
I haven't done this in a while, but we'll try. That's F sharp and A.
Yeah, nice. Let me try another one.
That's like, I have to translate to English, but it's like D and E flat.
Yeah.
Alright.
That's awesome. All right, I'm going to do three.
Oh God. All right.
Let's try.
Alright, that's
That was
do
an
mi
easy
so
one.
do mi so is C, E, G.
Yeah, and that was a C chord. Yeah. All right, let's try this.
That's Sol, Si, bemol, Do. So it's G, B flat, C.
Yeah, awesome. One thing I love about you, and when we grew up, you told me this, is like, I don't know if I exaggerated this over the years, but like, if you heard like a song like Mary Had a Little Lamb, right? And it doesn't finish or it ends on the wrong note, like it's really troubling for you, right? Like,
yeah, it's annoying.
let me see if I can
think
do
that's
it.
more having to. Alright. Well,
That hurts, right?
it does hurt.
Anyway, so okay, so that's amazing. So I play guitar, right? Or not as much as I used to, but I think I have a very minuscule relative pitch because a lot of, especially rock, is based around E since that's the low chord. So a lot of songs I can just kind of hear. I know that's an E. It feels like an E, and then I can kind of figure out where the notes lie after that. Not like I can't shout them out, but I can kind of figure them out real quick.
Sure.
But having it absolute is crazy. So I've heard that too, that it's genetic or partly genetic. But I mean,
It could be.
you can't argue that. I mean, it seems that you had a very rigorous musical upbringing. Yeah.
Right, I did, and that's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, because part of the training was to actually saying the name of the note that you're singing.
Yeah. So you played violin. No,
Yeah.
nothing else.
Well, I play a little bit of piano here and there, but no rigors.
Okay. Which I guess violin is also a good instrument to practice on because it's not like piano. You press a note and there it is. You really have to find the
you have to
hair
be-
of that specific pitch if you want it. Otherwise, it's flat. It's sharp. It sounds bad.
Exactly. You have to be able to adjust your intonation
Yeah.
for each note.
Yeah. Okay. So, what age did you start anything musical?
I don't know exactly. I was about four and a half when I started the violin,
Okay.
but I was exposed to music before that.
Sure. Are your parents musical?
Yeah, so my mom played the piano and my dad played the violin, so he's the one who taught me for the first couple of years.
Okay. And when did they encouraged you to start playing, right? It wasn't a personal choice?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know what personal choices are at that age, I guess. But,
I guess. Yeah, right. But I mean, I was made to play piano, and I think I liked it the first year, but then afterwards, practice for me was like, you had to it was like clawing my eyes out. It was, you couldn't get me to do it, and you're not going to get better that way. So you must have enjoyed it on some level, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I went through phases. I think there were some phases where I was kind of made to practice because I wanted to do other things. But I mean, I really enjoyed it all throughout.
Yeah. And then, so I mean, did you ever, when you started doing this at 4 years old, was it obvious that you had a talent for it, or it's just something that came, with all the practice hours that came with
I
it?
think other people go through the kind of training that I went through and don't end up having perfect pitch.
Okay, yeah,
they
that's
have
a
a really
good point.
good version of relative pitch.
I see.
So a really good ability to relate one note to the other.
Yeah.
But so I think that's why I think there's maybe a little bit of a genetic component.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was a big factor.
It's kind of like,
because it's not just being able to tell what the note is. It's also I hear a piece of music, I can tell what the key is. Like what scale
oh, yeah.
is being used. Like if I hear violin concerto, I can tell that it's in C major or G minor or whatever.
Yeah, that's crazy. And have you ever met anybody else with this skill, like in regular day life, where you're like, oh, I have that too, No?
I met one person. It was actually in the physics lab.
Okay. In college?
Yeah.
Really? Who?
Do you remember Carl?
Carl? No, I don't know.
He came in later. I'm trying to think.
Okay.
Well, anyway.
Yeah, but so he had absolute pitch, just like you.
Yeah.
You're a little better.
I don't know. It was a little different, but he had some kind of absolute pitch. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that's funny. When did you first actually realize that you had this skill, or was it just always obvious?
I don't. Maybe it was. I was maybe 7 years old or 8 years old when it started becoming obvious that I had this.
But I mean, the realization isn't like Peter Parker or Spider-Man, where he's suddenly like, "Oh my God! If I put my hand against this wall, I can actually climb up it."
It's more like X-Men, that it's kind of a taboo when you're growing up. And
okay, you kind of like keep it bottled in, but you know you can do it.
Exactly.
That's interesting. That's so cool. I would love to have that skill. It seems like not pointless. I mean, if you're a musician, it's not pointless at all. But if you're otherwise, it's kind of is. But it's I think a cool thing to be able to point out. Oh, this is that note. This is that. That's just sharp. This is flat. But from what I understand, is that it actually can be a bit of a burden sometimes, right? Like it can be really troubling because you hear that voice in your head is always playing for music, right?
Right.
So if I play music, you just can't help hearing that and translating those notes, that musical beauty to words and letters.
I don't know what it's like to listen to a piece of music without hearing those voices in my head.
That's so sad. I'm sorry.
It is.
So so I hear one of the most beautiful, like I used to play cello a little bit. So I love this piece by Camille Saint-Saëns, the Swan. Do you know that one? He has a whole. It's like all the animals, right? The Carnival of the Animals. And there's even a violin one.
Yeah.
I play this, but it's how is it? It's like this. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know the piece. I've heard it before. I don't remember what it sounds like.
But anyways, it's like one of these pieces. It's usually a cello and a piano, and it just is really. It hits these notes, and you almost could cry if you're in the right mood, you know. But like I sit there and I just like absorb it, you know. Like and when people go to concertos and operas, that's what they do, you know. It gets in them. It makes them emotional. But can you feel that same thing, or is this?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Right. So it doesn't take away from enjoying music.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, to its full extent. Getting shivers down your spine.
Okay.
Listening to a piece of music. Yeah, no, I still get all those things.
Okay, that's good. It was interesting. You were telling me the other day about rock music, though. I'd love for you to share that story again.
Oh, right. So, yeah, when I was growing up, I was basically listening to classical music.
Yeah.
Some, pop songs, but I was mostly focused on classical. I moved to the U.S. when I was 14 years old, went to high school in the U.S. And so one of the things that I started listening to in high school was kind of new rock.
Yeah.
Basically 90s rock.
Okay.
And maybe like early 2000. And
so what, like AC/DC, Metallica, or
like Nirvana,
sure. Yeah.
Radiohead, stuff like that.
Very like grungy, distorted, crunchy stuff.
Exactly. And so part of the appeal was exactly that it was, a lot of it was distorted, it was screechy, so like there were sounds that were coming out more as noise than notes.
Yeah.
Or like they were between two notes. So I was able to like hear that without the label.
Right. So you were almost like they put blinders on you, and you could actually.
I was escaping the perfect pitch world and enjoying music without the labels.
That's crazy. So that must actually have made the music even more like pleasing to you, right? Or like curious. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it did. Yeah.
That's so cool.
That was part of the appeal. One thing that I wanted to see if you remember is, do you remember when I was trying to train myself to recognize the frequency of phone dial tones?
Yes. Oh yeah, that's right.
And I never got around to doing it. So like on a phone, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0, and so each row corresponds to a certain frequency, and then each column on the dial pad is another frequency. And so then, like, basically each.
So you could tell what phone number was being dialed?
Exactly. But I couldn't do it because the thing is, like, those frequencies they were like between notes. So I wasn't getting a label.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't like a specific.
C, F, C, G. It was like between two notes. So it was harder. It was like out of tune.
Yeah. Hey, I'm curious if it's still. Here's my phone. Hold on. I don't know if the iPhones these days.
I think if you turn on some setting.
My text here. All right, let's see. That's not very loud. That's the same sound, right?
Yeah, there you go.
That's a cool. Yeah, I remember when you were doing that. That seems so crazy. So you would try to be able to like listen to someone dial a phone number, and you'd be like, 305.
So I think what you just dialed was like right column, right, left, right, center, left, center.
Oh yeah! Wow! Yeah.
But I couldn't hear the other note.
Oh, I see the actual. So you know which
I couldn't hear
row it is.
So
yeah. So I did a 3-3. I put 2 3s by accident. 3-3-0-5. So right, middle, 6-6, right, left 7. Yeah, that's pretty good. So that's fascinating. I love those little stories are really funny. One of the best memories. Whenever I tell people you have this skill, I jump to this memory because we took physics together, and we had this one teacher who I loved, but he could be a bit boring and long-winded, and we'd find ourselves like kind of messing around. Remember Mezichescu?
I was gonna say we won't say his name.
Yeah, okay, I'll beep it out. But anyway, so we'd be sitting there, we'd be doing whatever things. I'd be like writing numbers down, drawing, and you'd be doing whatever. But I remember you moved the chair, these little desk chairs that you have in college, and it like rubbed against the floor. Right. And I remember you pausing and just being like, that was I don't know what the note was, like a F sharp or something. And then it's just like you hear the noises, just regular notes that happen in everyday life, whether it's like the hit of a glass or a moving of a chair, or
exactly.
Which is fascinating because I would never notice. What?
Yeah, it's not just instruments. It's like any sound that happens to be a single frequency or mainly a single frequency.
Yeah. And I remember trying to understand the difference between like what's noise and what's actually a note. Because if I scratch a keyboard, a blackboard, to me that's just noise. Or if I rub against the floor, that's just noise. But sometimes buried in there, or actually the whole thing is a note, right? Or a mix of notes.
Right, yeah, so like what makes a note is that there's a predominant frequency
Okay.
at a single.
Okay, so it's not yeah.
It's almost like not a wave packet, but a noise is like a superposition of a bunch of frequencies.
Yeah.
And it's just very chaotic.
So everything is noise, but there are specific noises that gather together in this frequency, right?
If there's some predominant frequency that's louder than the others, then you'll hear the noise as a note.
But it's crazy to think, like, why would me pressing on this center thing while blowing into it creates that, whereas if I scratch on the blackboard, it doesn't, Like, who decides that?
I mean, like for the keyboard, I guess it seems to be electronic, right? Or no, actually?
No, it's just air.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know how that thing works, but...
But I'm talking from, like, a very meta version,
right. Oh, right. It's a mystery.
You don't have the answer. I know. You don't have the answer. That's fine.
I don't know. I mean, there are like natural frequencies, certain objects have natural frequencies where like a certain frequency will kind of resonate better than the others.
Yeah. Right. But
I don't think that answers your question.
No, but it's just a thing to think about, I guess, and kind of stare into space and wonder. Okay, next question is, so take me, all right? I have some musical background, I can't do what you do, but I know music. Could you teach me this? Like, if you took me under your wing and we trained however much necessary, could you coach me to have this skill? What do you think?
I think that may depend on maybe some genetic factors. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
But assuming that that's not a problem, I think so. From what I read, it's easier at a young age.
Yeah. Okay.
Just like, I think different cultures have different labels for different colors.
Right.
Some cultures put two colors together and call that one color, or they see 5 different colors in what we call blue. Or
sure. Okay.
Right. So it'd be a little bit like retraining the way you see colors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or training you to be able to have a wider palette of colors that you.
Right. So where you used to know blue, now you got to be able to like disseminate between 10 different blues. Now suddenly it's spanned out into this wider range of colors.
I think that if every day or almost every day you try to do at first you do a simple you try to recognize you listen to like A, for example, the note A, and then you just listen to it every day, and every time you get back to it the next day, you try to sing an A without listening to it first.
Yeah.
Eventually you'll get better at it, and
right. That's the training part. Yeah.
And then you can start adding more notes.
Got it. Yeah. I guess it comes down to like how much you want it as well. Like people always ask me about the memory thing, and I don't think there's much genetic there. But people say like, "Can you teach me?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I really think that anybody can do what I can do.
Yeah.
But no, not everybody's going to be like the champion, right? Nobody's going to be the best setting records and stuff like that. And what's the difference? It's because
you were committed 100%.
I wanted it, right? Like even though people come to me asking and they want it, it's a different kind of a want, like to sit there and train yourself and for it to consume you and be all that you think about. As much as you want it, it may not manifest itself within you the same way as it did for me. And you won't get to that place. You'll get good, but not David Leibovitch style.
I mean, it was a huge commitment because growing up, I mean, I was practicing every day. I had, weekly, I had a violin lesson, and then I had a music theory, basically, lesson. So it was really just part of who I was growing up.
Yeah. Wait, does your father or mother have perfect pitch too?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think my dad maybe a little bit, but he didn't go through the same
rigorous
training that I did. Yeah.
Is he a good violinist? Are you guys comparable, or are you better?
No, I mean he was really good. He kind of stopped playing before I was born, and then he kind of got back into it with me.
Yeah.
But he was very good when he was younger.
Now, here's another question: can you be a very, very good professional musician and not have this skill?
I think so. Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I know musicians who just have really good relative pitch.
Relative pitch.
A lot of my teachers, my violin teachers, didn't have perfect pitch.
Wow.
But they had really good relative pitch.
Interesting. That's crazy.
So yeah, no, definitely. It's not a must. It's a
it.
Bonus, but it's not a must.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah, one of my, that guitarist, Borelli Legrand, he does like gypsy jazz stuff. So he grew up like with the gypsies, right, in Belgium. And he is, it's incredible the kind of solos he comes up with and the chords and everything is just so interesting. All the time he improvises so amazingly. And the interesting about him is he doesn't know the names to any of the notes. He was never shown that. He had to learn just by ear from everybody else playing around him. And, if you ask him, like, what's he playing, he can't tell you, but he can, like, figure out the most complex, interesting overlayings and patterns that match and, oppose these chord progressions. It's crazy,
That's amazing. I mean, from my experience, it's pretty easy for me to listen to a song and then just play it on the piano or on the violin or whatever. But improvisation has always been a problem for me.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
And maybe it has to do with perfect pitch. I mean, actually, it probably has to do with the fact that it wasn't part of what I was doing when I was playing the violin.
That too, yeah. I mean, violin is, you were playing like very composed pieces and you followed along and that was it, right?
Exactly.
You learn that and then you improvise the feelings and the motion of that set of notes, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I think part of it may also be that I'm always thinking about the name of the notes I'm playing.
Yeah.
And maybe it's slowing me down or...
That's interesting, yeah. Because you see some like jazz or rock soloists doing a crazy solo, and it's just like they look like they lose themselves, and they just feel it. It's like they probably don't even know. It's just the feeling. Whereas you'd be thinking like, okay, what's next? Is it do re mi? Like I can imagine that totally removes the quality of an improvised solo.
Right.
Interesting. That's so funny. What else? Yeah, so I would love to play like a couple songs, just random songs, and for you to tell me like what key it's in or something.
Okay, sure.
Because I remember there was a couple instances where I'd show you like a song I liked or whatever, and you'd be like, "Oh, I can't listen to this. It's actually a little sharp." Right?
Oh, right. Like it's like the instrument is completely like tuned.
Yeah, they're tuned wrong, or I don't notice it. Most every ear won't notice it, but you are like, that is a slight sharp. Everything's tuned up, which is like Mary Had a Little Lamb. Like if it's kind of the wrong notes, or it's like slightly off, that just drives you mad, right?
Yeah, and also if it's like a well-known song that's, that has a key and you're playing it in a different key, that usually also bothers me.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Because you're used to hearing it the one way, and then suddenly it's like...
Yeah, it's like transposed.
So do you know off the top of your head any songs that are famous but are like horribly out of tune?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, there's some, just there are some rock songs that where like the solos are just off, but I still love the songs.
Yeah.
And sometimes it actually sounds better because it's a little bit out of tune.
I see. Yeah, that's part of the charm of the song, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Hold on, I'm trying to load a song here. Let's see, I'll use this. Do you have any like interesting stories that you remember that the perfect pitch kind of comes into play?
So we were in the physics lab. So we used to work in this physics, cosmology, astrophysics lab.
Right.
At UM.
Yeah, we had this lab. It was probably the most prolific experimental lab in the University of Miami physics department.
That's what it felt like.
And one half was this teacher, Professor Galeazzi, who was he had like what do you call it? A fridge, basically, a device that went down to close to absolute zero. And the idea was that it could detect X-rays in space. That was our side. And the other half was Dr. Gunnarsson. And what did he do? He had a mirror?
Cosmology. So we analyzed data we detected and analyzed data from the cosmic microwave.
Yeah.
Cosmic microwave background.
Yeah.
So different...
Google that if you don't know what that is. It's interesting.
I'm sorry?
I'm telling the listeners to Google a cosmic microwave background.
Yes, CMB. It's really cool. It's like a picture of a universe, I think 300,000 years after the Big Bang. Because there was that's when there was an expansion of space and time. I don't know if I remember this correctly, but basically the light from that moment is still reaching us today at a frequency that was redshifted to millimeter waves and microwaves.
And that's what he was looking for, is this sound, right? Quote unquote.
Yeah, actually, that was one of the ideas. Yeah, but I mean, most of it was just analyzing the data itself.
Yeah. All right, so there we were in those labs. What's the memory you have?
So we had this, we had all these computers and these all these different instruments, electronic equipment.
Yeah.
And some of them had fans. Like.
Oh, like
ventilation fans.
Yeah, ventilation.
Like a computer has a fan.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was making a noise, and it was I think it was some kind of like F, I think. And so I thought maybe I could determine what the frequency, like the rotation speed of the fan was, from knowing what note it made.
That's awesome.
And I think it worked. The math worked out. I think it had like six. It was a fan with six. What do you call those things?
Blades.
6 blades. There you go. And so I had to divide it by 6 or multiply by 6 or whatever. And I think it worked out.
That's funny.
Or maybe I just made it work out.
Yeah. Do you know like all the notes and their number frequency in hertz?
I only know A.
Okay. Yeah.
The A that I'm used to is 440.
440. Yeah. But could you figure out relatively?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I had to calculate it, but I forget what the formula is. But I think it's something like 4 times 2 to the n over 12 or something like that. And n is the number of halftones away from...
Okay. From that note.
From A.
Okay.
Right. I think that's what it is, but I don't remember.
Okay, so you just need to know... You said it was 2 to the n?
2 to the n over 12, because there are 12 half steps in a scale.
Okay, so that's tricky then.
You can't do that in your head.
No. We had a guest on here who can do powers really fast. Like to give him a 2-digit number, and he can square it, cube it, take it to the 12th power, and he knows the answer immediately.
Oh my god!
But if it's going to be a fraction, I don't know if he can do that.
Yeah, maybe we could team up and.
Yeah, together, you walk around together and be like, this is an A, and he'd be like doing the math and tell you. That would be awesome, yeah. No, in the physics lab, we did so many things. I was telling you that, like, to me, those years were so transformative. So we studied physics as our majors, and it just, going to that lab I had to do some work. I was working on this fridge, as I mentioned, but like we would do a lot of kind of stupid, but looking back, actually kind of interesting stuff. I mean, we built like little robots, autonomous robots. That's when I learned the Rubik's Cube. Like we had competitions between us.
Yeah.
We started doing this stupid French English language, right, where we would try to figure out how to say with French words English phrases.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It was really cool, and I remember I read so many interesting math books and science books, and just like, I think without those years, I don't know if I'd be where I am today. I mean, it was just like a very exploratory time, and I don't know, do you feel that same way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we were all very, at first, just kind of nerds, just interested in science and physics, and then we just really got into it. And we got into math, and we got into physics, and we all had that same interest.
Yeah.
And so, even though, even when we weren't doing the work we were supposed to be doing in the lab, we were still talking about physics and math.
Right. Yeah.
And or related things.
Yeah. So. It bugs me sometimes now, because I remember back then I could probably explain almost anything, like how it worked, why this is happening in the world. But now it's like, I don't even know. Right. Like, for example, I was in Miami the other day, and my car, we had two cars. My mom's car was under the cul-de-sac. Is that what you call it? See, I probably knew what that was called. The awning, right, of our house, whatever. And then the other car was... The canopy? Yeah, sure. I think cul-de-sac is something else. Anyways, and then my car was outside. And Miami's very humid. So my car outside was like covered in condensation, right, in the morning. Whereas her car, my mom's car, was dry. But they were still in open air. But her car was just happened to be covered, kind of protected. But it didn't rain, right?
Right.
So I was like, I knew I'd be able to explain this.
Oh yeah, totally. And now I'm like, okay, so where was it warmer? Why does that matter? And
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I always think like when I'm older, I'm going to go back and redo my degree in physics,
Right. Yeah, I feel like I knew a lot more back then.
Yeah.
Now.
Damn. Anyways, okay, before we go, I'm going to play a couple songs, and I just want you to tell me like what key it's in.
Sure.
As fast as you can. It may not be obvious, but here we go. This is the first one.
Good time, I feel alive.
Do you know it?
Right. But it keeps changing a little bit.
Okay.
It really keeps changing.
I think when it starts, you'll figure it out.
Okay. It's a great song.
I love this song.
Having a good time. Shooting star leaping through the sky like a tiger defying the...
What do you think?
F major?
Okay, I don't know. So you're telling me.
Oh, I thought you were like quizzing me.
No, I don't know. So
I'm pretty sure it's F major.
Okay, but I guess a lot of these rock songs aren't very like.
Well, they modulate from
exactly.
one to another. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's try something a little more. What do you call it? Classical.
Sure. That's in E major. Yeah, E major.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, no.
Well, now it's changing to A. That's A.
Yeah, A minor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I gave you the piece where you kind of had changed a little bit. That's awesome, man. All right, and then one more. No, sorry, that was an ad. Hold on.
Yeah. I was like, well, that was a noise.
What is your favorite instrument to hear?
I would think... I can't answer that. So many great instruments out there. I just can't. I mean, I get into I started learning classical guitar a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's right.
So I was really into that. So I thought it was the greatest instrument in the world. But then you just go from one to the other, and well, great.
All right, this song.
Well, it starts.
Right.
It's an E, but I'm trying to think if it's in E. Yeah, it's basically E minor.
Okay. Well, so what? I mean, I'm not as knowledgeable in this, but like, what makes a song take hold of a key, right? Because that song, I mean, he's just playing a riff over and over again, probably based around E.
Yeah.
But does that necessarily mean that the song is in E?
No. I mean, so there are different scales. The most common ones, at least in classical music, are like the major key and then the minor key.
Yeah.
But then there are other modes that you can use, and sometimes songs use like weird modes that I'm not used to.
Okay.
And
that's definitely one of them.
maybe a little bit, but I'm pretty sure it was basically E major or E minor.
Okay. Cool, man. Well, that's fun to listen to and to talk about. I'm sure our listeners will enjoy that. As you said,
this is great.
Yeah, I don't think it's a very common skill that you see, or people. I don't think like if they have the skill, they necessarily get to use it or share it. So to talk about it, I think it's kind of a cool.
Yeah, no, I mean,
experience.
Absolutely, because it's part of me. It's part of who I am, and it's great to be able to talk about it.
Yeah. What do you do now? You're a patent lawyer, right?
Yeah, I'm a patent attorney.
From Prodigy music kid to physicist to lawyer.
Exactly. Well, but patent law uses, like, I have to use my physics.
That's true. Science background, yeah.
Science background, yeah.
That's true. Awesome, man. Well, thanks for having.
This is great.
Thanks for being on the show, and let's hang out soon.
Absolutely. Best of luck to you.
All right, take care.